Researcher and at South African Institute of Security Studies, Dr. Akinola Olojo, joins me now via Skype to discuss this issue. Good to have you right now on the TVC News. Now, how worrying is this report by the Global Terror Index?
Thank you for having me. It's a very worrying report, and it's actually not coming as a surprise because we've witnessed, several attacks, more than a dozen actually, back-to-back attacks on military bases, as we've all witnessed since July. The latest one happened in Buniyari in Yobe State with about 8 soldiers killed. We've heard reports of the Islamic State West Africa province led by Abu Musab al-Banawi using drones. At least the army reported that. We've also seen, the Nigerian state also, responding to this, of course, with President Muhammadu Buhari convening a high-level summit in N'Djamena just a couple of days ago. And, there is also, in the background, a very serious humanitarian situation as a result of, the violence which has raged for quite a while. So we have 2.5 million people at least displaced in the Lake Chad Basin countries, and about 1.5 people displaced in northeast Nigeria. So it's a report that, it's a reminder of the need for the government to begin to implement the National Action Plan on preventing and countering violent extremism with a sense of urgency. It's not just enough to launch the document, which happened last year, November. Of course, we have the 4 components, which the government clearly announced. The National Security Advisor and relevant agencies are aware of what needs to be done. So it's about treating it with a sense of urgency.
And even though the government is working with the multinational joint task force in curbing the attacks of the Boko Haram group, what can be done differently now to win this battle, which has raged on for more than 8 years?
Yes, it's actually close to a decade. But we also need to remember that this is something which has its roots even before 2009, when the major uprising occurred in the Northeast. Now, what can be done differently? Okay, first we need to acknowledge that a crisis of this magnitude is going to take quite a while for things to, to improve in terms of the situation. I mentioned the humanitarian situation, which is quite serious. That will take quite a while. The implementation of the strategy, the strategy on countering and preventing violent extremism, the 4 components that are reflected in that plan. The first one has to do with strengthening institutions and interagency coordination. That needs to be treated seriously. There's another component that has to do with safeguarding human rights and upholding the rule of law, especially when it comes to counterterrorism operations. And we all remember that in 2009, one of the problems, or one of the things which led to the escalation of the crisis, was the extrajudicial killing of Mohammed Yusuf, the first leader of Boko Haram. Now, there's a 3rd component of the strategy, which also needs to be implemented seriously. That has to do with community engagement and resilience building. We all know that even when it comes to issues of reintegration, just recently we had a batch of former Boko Haram members who were claimed to be successfully rehabilitated. But then we need to ask, where the communities where they are going to be absorbed in, are they being consulted? Are their own needs and concerns being prioritized? So community engagement is necessary. And again, the final component of the strategy, of course, has to do with strategic communications. I mentioned last week during one of the interviews that there is a need to counter the ideological narrative pushed by Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa province. So all these 4 components are in place. I've read the document myself, and it's actually comprehensive enough to be able to bring about some level of change, which will take time, of course. But then, to what extent is it being implemented with a sense of urgency? That's the question which should be on the lips of every Nigerian, and not just asking whether there is a strategy or not. Implementing it is the main thing that should be prioritized.
And we hope it will have an end to this crisis that seems to ravage the northern part of the country. Senior researcher, South African Institute of Security Studies, Dr. Akinola Olojo, thank you very much for your insights on TVC News.
Thank you for having me.